Welcome to Root Compass. Today we're going to do a complete walkthrough and a feature tour of this new tool that we're excited to share with you today. My name is Brandy Lepisky, and I'm the founder and COO of Root Compass. My background is that I've been in K through 12 administration for the last 15 years, most recently as the director of the Compass School, where Root Compass was born, and many of our teachers participated in its design and ongoing adjustment and improvements.
And I'm Heather Ballantyne. I'm the founder and chief academic officer of Root Compass. So there are two types of literacy assessments that I want to make sure we're clear on because Root Compass is a diagnostic tool, and this is often confused with a screener. A universal screener is given to every student 3 times per year in the fall, winter, and spring. Its primary purpose is to identify who is at risk or falling behind in reading. And I'm focusing on reading here because we're talking about literacy assessments. We know that screeners are also supposed to be very quick. One of the best ways of determining if a student can read is giving them an oral reading fluency measure, and those are 1-minute assessments. If we see from the screener that students are falling behind, we don't know why from the screener. So we need to follow up with a diagnostic, and that's what Root Compass is. Oftentimes, schools take screening data and try to form intervention groups and goals for their students. However, the instructional component is unclear for teachers because they don't know why the student is falling behind, so they don't know what they're supposed to be focusing on and teaching them. A diagnostic is given to students identified as at risk by a screener. It answers the questions, why is a student struggling? And it provides exact specific information to guide the instruction. So Root Compass is a diagnostic assessment tool for foundational literacy. It identifies specific learning gaps that the student has. It can also group students for you and track their growth over time automatically. So here's a snapshot on the right of the type of data that Root Compass gives you. The green is what the student knows, the red is what they're still learning, and the white, it's not that it's not tested in Root Compass, it's just showing as white until an assessment is given.
When we first began this work, we had screeners in place, and then we said we need much more information. So we started working with the diagnostic tools that were available for us, but they were all paper-based. And paper-based is not only something that generates tons and tons of paper, as evidenced by this snapshot here, but also it means that further work needs to be done to then analyze all of those responses. We were arranging for subs to be available. We were pulling teachers out and doing focused data days, but we spent most of our time analyzing and organizing the data and not enough time then being able to say, what's next with this? What do we want to do? What are the groupings that we want to get to? And so because we were stuck in those lower level tasks, we looked to technology to see if we could expedite and accelerate some of those processes. And that's when Root Compass was born.
When you log into Root Compass, you'll see this menu on the left. You'll select student forms, and this is where you can find the assessment forms that you will put in front of your student. There are screener forms and diagnostics. The screeners are intended for students in grades 2 and above, and you'll see that there's a mixture of nonsense words and multisyllabic words, and then there's words with affixes, with prefixes and suffixes on them. And again, there's real and nonsense on the bottom to capture students who are memorizing. There's also the diagnostic forms, and there's 4 for you to ensure that students aren't starting to memorize word lists if you're giving the same form over and over again for progress monitoring purposes. All the concepts covered are listed on this table of contents right here. There's fundamentals, irregular high frequency words. There's basic word lists. You can give students short vowel lists of CVC words or expanded, which contain digraphs and consonant clusters. And then there's multi-syllable words.
Now we're getting ready to administer one of the diagnostic assessments for our student. We can see that we have a variety of different subtests available to us to work through. Today we're going to take a look at irregular high frequency words. Once we're in there, we can select which of the lists. We're going to choose list 2.2a. This is what the teacher will see each time that they're into one of these subtests, and it just gives the full view of all of the ones that are also available on the student-facing materials. The teacher is going to go through and mark if it was correct or incorrect with each one. Typically, you would assess each and every one, but for the sake of time today, we're just going to give you a sample. We'll click Finish with this evaluation. Once we get to this screen, if a teacher would like to make some additional notes, these are available to them. That could be everything from if it was automatic, if the student required 3 or more prompts, not automatic. It just gives additional context to the student's performance, although it's not necessary. And then we would hit Submit. We're able to see on that subtest that we just did that the student completed 33% of that subtest. Next, we're going to take a look at advanced words so that you can see a more complex assessment. Let's take a look at the silent letters. Here we're able to see each of the sounds that we're analyzing. So one of the features is that we have the all correct or all incorrect button. We'll demonstrate, and it just automatically moves it right over. And then obviously there's times where a student will have some of the responses correct and some incorrect, and a teacher can go through and fine tune that as they're going. Again, we have that same page available to us for any additional information we'd like to record. And now we can continue to see progress recorded each of the times that a new test is administered. Once we have all of the assessment data in, now we're getting to the stuff that's actually fun, what to do with it. So first we'll take a look at the skill mastery sheet. From here, we can choose which school we're working with, if you have a district subscription, which grade, and then being able to choose the student. Once that information is up, we're able to look at the student's complete profile within Root Compass, which takes into account all of the different skills that they've been assessed with. We have the overview information, and we also have this show skills view where we can see every single skill that was assessed and the student's performance. Clearly, the student is doing well in the fundamentals. We'll scroll down to an area where they're still learning a bit. We can see some of the assessments have been given, and there are some recorded as red, meaning that the student is still learning that area. We could also see down where we have long vowel teams, for example, at the bottom of the screen there, where the student has not yet been assessed in these. We'll take a look at skill growth, and again, selecting from the school, the grade, and choosing a student. This is interesting to us because it shows us how many skills a student has gained with each subsequent administration of Root Compass. In this first one, we can see the third row down there with Diagnostic A. There were 230 skills gained. That is an initial onboarding of information. So that's more typical for the first time through. And then each time with each subsequent administration, we're curious, how many more skills did the students acquire during that instructional period? Here we're able to see 80 more skills, 65 more skills. So we're able to see that the student is moving through the progression. It's also interesting to know how many total skills we are analyzing. There are 497 total skills that we're taking a look at through Root Compass. And each time we're looking to see the student moving through that progression. In this view, we're able to see this bar that's going across the top. The ideal version is that we would have a complete green bar all the way across, showing proficiency in fundamentals, high frequency words, basic words, advanced words, and multisyllabic words. Here we're able to see that the student is progressing within each of the subsequent administrations, and that most of the information from fundamentals, high frequency, and more than half of basic words have been covered. We're able to see where the student is in the progression and in their search for mastery. If we scroll down a little bit further, we're able to see which specific skills were gained from one diagnostic to the next. This information is valuable for IEP meetings as we're looking through what skills have been acquired and which ones students are still learning. Next, we'll look at what I think is the most important feature because it directly impacts instruction, which is skill grouping. In this particular view, we're able to see that the subscription holder has a district or school level license because we're able to see across so many grades. That is available for purchase, but also there's the option of a single user license. We're going to choose to select all of the students in the third grade, and then we'll scroll down and we'll identify which skills the instruction has been focusing on. We're probably done with fundamentals at this point in the third grade, but we might be interested in basic words and advanced words. From here, we can fine-tune it even further that aligns with the instruction that's been given. Next, we're going to choose how many groups. Oftentimes, this depends on how many instructors you have available to you. And note that could be a teacher assistant, it could be the special educator, it could be the reading specialist, the classroom teacher, however many hands on deck you have available to help administer these different groups. Another thing to keep in mind is that you might have fewer instructors, but you're planning to have each instructor do two groups, for example. So even in a classroom situation where maybe it is the teacher and the teacher assistant, but they're planning to run two groups each, that could be four total groups, for example. And there's also an opportunity to choose minimum group size. We'll do 3 students minimum for a group, but notice that we had lots of different options available to us there. Next, we'll generate the report. These are the students that are most like in the information that they know and that which they have not yet mastered. From there, that original kind of star tool then scrolls down to give you the information behind why those students were grouped together. And as you're looking through, you'll notice that a lot of times the green will line up where every student in the same group has the same green. This is just another view of the same data, this time breaking it down by the individual skills and which students need those skills. In the last version, we looked at the kind of information you might be able to extract from a single user subscription. One thing that is important to note is that there is a lot of value in being able to see students over multiple classrooms, whether it's multiple classrooms in the same grade or across grades. That allows, for example, all of the teachers of the third grade to select all of the students in the third grade and say that together we're going to divide and conquer. You might choose students over, say, third and fourth grade for the groupings. And so in this version, we've doubled the number of students that we're going to put into Root Compass, but you'll see that the outcomes are the same. Scroll down and again select which skill categories we're interested in zoning in on. And we're going to increase the number of groups. We can even double it from what we had in the last version because we have twice as many teachers available, but we'll keep the same group size. We click on Generate Report, and as we scroll down, notice that we have more students that we were able to view here and also more groupings available. Again, that data is fine-tuned based on the number of groups that we asked Root Compass to generate. While there's value in a single user subscription, one might argue that there's even more value in being able to analyze the data across multiple classrooms, whether it's multiple classrooms in the same grade or multiple classrooms across grades. The more instructors that you're able to add, the more specialized each of the groups is able to be according to the needs of the students in that group. The more specialized the groups are, the more quickly you're able to accelerate the instruction and the skill mastery that those students will accomplish. Next, we'll click on this Save as PDF view. This view allows you to print out the information and have all of that data that we were just looking at your fingertips, again, acting as a roadmap for each instructor. Finally, we'll look at cohort analysis. We'll look at School 201. This gives us information across different grade levels with how much each of those cohorts have mastered of the different categories that we're looking at. If we look at that yellow line in the fourth grade and we look all the way to the right at multisyllabic words, it's not a surprise to us that the fourth grade would have the highest performance on those multisyllabic words. We're able to see that as a cohort, they've mastered just about 85% there. And again, we would have the highest number of performance across based on the amount of time that the students would typically be working within it. Low performance in these areas could also mean that the teacher just hasn't assessed it much yet. This information gives either team leader or a school leader or district leader some overall information that might prompt some further questions and inquiry as they're working one-on-one with teachers. If we scroll down a little bit, we're able to see this same information just in a table form for those who prefer the straight numbers as opposed to the visuals. So as we talked about, Root Compass is available both for individual educators and for schools. A teacher does not have to wait for all of the teachers on their team or all of the administrators in their school to necessarily be on board for a full-scale rollout before they're able to choose to start making a difference directly in their classroom.